The conference room fell silent. "She's replaceable junior staff." Vice President Thompson's voice dripped with contempt as he gestured dismissively in my direction. 20 executives from the defense contractor sat around the mahogany table, their eyes shifting uncomfortably between Thompson and me. This was the pitch meeting for a $1.8 billion government network security system, the largest contract in our company's history. Thompson continued, his smugness filling the room. "We don't need her here. She's been slow on deliverables anyway. Security reasons aside, she lacks the clearance for this conversation." My jaw tightened. 6 years. 6 years of watching this man climb the corporate ladder I built. 6 years of strategic silence. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the marble floor. Every face turned toward me as I walked to the head of the table where Thompson's laptop displayed the system architecture. My system architecture. My fingers moved across the keyboard. Access denied. Thompson tried again. Global admin rights required. "What's happening?" one of the government officials asked. I met Thompson's eyes, watching the color drain from his face as realization began to dawn. "As the sole founder of this company," I said quietly, "every contract, every system deployment, every security protocol requires my access key, my digital signature, my authorization." Thompson's mouth opened and closed. The room erupted. Before we dive into how this moment became 6 years in the making, we're incredibly close to reaching 1,000 subscribers, a milestone that means everything to this growing community. If these stories of justice and perseverance resonate with you, consider joining us on this journey. That small action helps more than you might realize. Now, let me take you back to where this actually began. My name is Riley Cross. Today, I'm listed in the company directory as Senior Systems Analyst, a title that makes my mother laugh every time she sees it. But that's not who I really am. I'm the founder, the architect, the creator of what became NexCore Security Solutions. Growing up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Cleveland with my mother and younger sister taught me something that Ivy League schools never could: how to read people. Mom worked double shifts as a nurse, and I watched her navigate hospital politics, advocate for patients who couldn't advocate for themselves, and treat the janitor with the same respect as the chief surgeon. She taught me that empathy isn't weakness, it's intelligence. That lesson shaped everything. When I started coding in high school, I didn't just see systems and firewalls, I saw the people those systems were meant to protect. The hospital workers like my mom, whose patient data needed safeguarding. The small business owners who couldn't afford enterprise-level security. I understood what they needed because I understood what it meant to feel vulnerable. That empathy became my superpower in the tech world. It also became my blind spot because I assumed others operated with the same principles. I was wrong, and that mistake cost me everything. For a while. 8 years ago, I was 26 years old, working out of a converted storage space I rented for $200 a month. The office had exposed pipes, unreliable heating, and internet that cut out every time it rained. I'd spent 3 years developing what I called the Sentinel Protocol, a revolutionary approach to network security that didn't just detect threats, but predicted them using behavioral pattern analysis. While everyone else was building higher walls, I was teaching systems to think like attackers. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday night. I'd been awake for 36 hours, surviving on cold pizza and energy drinks. My sister Emma called to check in on me. "You sound terrible," she said. "I sound victorious," I corrected her. "It works, Em. The system just prevented a simulated attack that shouldn't be preventable for another 5 years based on current technology." The Sentinel Protocol worked. But having revolutionary technology and getting anyone to pay attention to it are two very different challenges. I spent 6 months pitching to venture capital firms, tech companies, and government contractors. The responses were predictably discouraging. Too young, too unproven, too theoretical. Then I met Vanessa Chen at a technology conference in Austin. She was representing Quantum Ventures, a mid-sized investment firm specializing in defense technology. Unlike the others, she actually understood what I'd built. "This is extraordinary work," she said, reviewing my presentation. "The predictive algorithms alone could revolutionize threat assessment. Have you filed patents?" 17 of them, all pending. She smiled. "Smart. Listen, Riley, I think we can do something here, but I'll be honest with you. The defense sector doesn't hand billion-dollar contracts to 26-year-old women working out of storage units, no matter how brilliant the technology. So what are you suggesting?" "Structure, credibility. We help you build a real company around this. Bring in experienced executives, establish government relationships, create the infrastructure to actually deliver on contracts this size. You keep majority ownership and control of the technology. We provide everything else." It sounded perfect. Looking back, that should have been my first warning sign. Within 6 months, Vanessa's firm had transformed my storage unit operation into NexCore Security Solutions, a legitimate company with actual offices, a team of 12 employees, and meetings with defense contractors I'd never have accessed on my own. She brought in Robert Thompson as VP of Client Relations. He had 20 years of defense contracting, connections throughout the Pentagon, and an impressive resume from previous security firms. Thompson was polished in ways I'd never be. Silver hair, expensive suits, the kind of confident handshake that made people trust him instantly. He called everyone by their first name, remembered spouses' names and kids' birthdays, and could navigate Washington politics like he'd been born there. Within 3 months, he'd secured our first government contract, a $4.2 million pilot program with the Department of Defense. We were legitimate. The company grew faster than I'd imagined possible. That first contract led to 3 more. Within a year, we had 47 employees and had moved into a proper office building in Alexandria, Virginia, close enough to DC to matter. I was the Chief Technology Officer, responsible for all technical development and system architecture. Thompson handled client relations and government contracts. On paper, I still owned 51% of the company. On paper. The problems started small. A meeting I wasn't included in, a contract clause I didn't review, technical decisions made without my input. "It's just efficiency," Thompson explained when I raised concerns. "You're brilliant with the technology, Riley, but these client meetings are 90% politics and 10% technical specs. We need you focused on development." It made sense, sort of. Emma didn't think so. She'd come to work for NexCore as our HR director after finishing her business degree, and she saw things I was too busy to notice. "He's freezing you out," she said one evening at Mom's house, our Sunday tradition. "He's managing client relations. That's literally his job." "No, Rye, he's erasing you. Last week, a reporter asked to interview you about the Sentinel Protocol. Thompson told them you weren't available and did the interview himself. He talked about our team's innovative approach for 20 minutes without mentioning your name once." Mom set down her fork. "Is that true? It's one interview, and I hate doing press anyway." "You hate it because you're humble," Mom said quietly. "That's a virtue in life, but sometimes in business it's a liability." Emma pulled out her phone, showing me NexCore's website. "Look at the leadership page." Thompson's photo was front and center, listed as Executive Vice President and Chief Operations Officer, a title I didn't remember him having. I was listed third as Chief Technology Officer with a description that made me sound like a department head rather than the founder. "This is just marketing," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "It's erasure, and it's deliberate." The real wake-up call came during a board meeting 18 months after Thompson joined. We were discussing equity restructuring to facilitate new funding. "Riley, we need to talk about dilution. I'm aware new funding means dilution. I'm comfortable dropping from 51% to, say, 45% if the terms are favorable." Vanessa and Thompson exchanged a look. "We're proposing 32%, said Thompson. The room tilted. "That's not majority ownership." Correct, but you'd maintain significant stake and complete control over technical development. The reality is, Riley, we're entering a phase where government contractors want to see experienced leadership with security clearances and established track records. Your youth and unconventional background create hesitation. Unconventional background? I created the technology that's generating every dollar this company makes. Vanessa leaned forward. Nobody's questioning your technical brilliance, but billion-dollar defense contracts require relations you simply don't have. I should have fought harder, should have hired lawyers, called their bluff. Instead, I compromised. I agreed to 38%. Emma was furious. They're stealing your company right in front of you. The cost became clear over the next 4 years. Slowly, methodically, Thompson rebuilt NexCore in his image. My allies in the company, people I'd hired who understood the original vision, were replaced with Thompson's people. Client-facing roles went to his former colleagues. My role shrank. Technical decisions I used to make unilaterally now required approval from committees Thompson controlled. My security clearances were somehow never quite sufficient for certain meetings. Contract negotiations happened without me. Security protocols, Thompson would explain, need-to-know basis only. The irony of being excluded from security discussions at the security company I founded wasn't lost on me. Then came the restructuring. 3 years ago, Thompson proposed bringing in outside executives to prepare for a potential acquisition or IPO. The board, now dominated by Vanessa's people and Thompson's allies, enthusiastically agreed. My title changed from Chief Technology Officer to Senior Systems Analyst. It's just organizational clarity, HR explained. Your actual role isn't changing. My equity was diluted again during Series C funding. 38% became 24%, became 18%. I was now a minority shareholder in the company I'd founded. But here's what Thompson and Vanessa didn't know, couldn't know, because they'd never actually understood the technology they were profiting from. The Sentinel Protocol wasn't just software you could install and forget. It was a living system that required constant authentication from its creator. Every major contract, every government deployment, every critical system operation, all of it traced back to core security protocols that required my specific access credentials. I'd built it that way deliberately, back in the storage unit days, as protection against exactly the kind of theft I was too naive to recognize happening. The system architecture had my DNA woven through every line of code. Every 72 hours, the most critical security functions required biometric verification that only I could provide. Thompson thought he'd stolen my company. He'd actually just been borrowing it, and the bill was about to come due. The $1.8 billion contract was supposed to be Thompson's crowning achievement. The Department of Defense needed a complete overhaul of their network security infrastructure. Every military base, every classified system, every communication channel. Thompson spent 6 months courting the decision-makers. Dinners, golf outings, carefully orchestrated demonstrations. He positioned himself as the visionary leader of NexCore, the man who'd built this revolutionary company from the ground up. I watched it happen from my increasingly marginalized position. The junior staff who actually understood the technology would come to me with questions, problems, innovations. I'd solve them, they'd implement the solutions, and Thompson would present the results as proof of our team's capabilities. 2 weeks before the final pitch meeting, Thompson called me into his office. "Riley, sit down." I remained standing. "What do you need?" "The DoD presentation is in 2 weeks. I need to know, are we ready?" "The technology is ready. It's been ready." Thompson leaned back in his chair, studying me. "I'm going to be honest with you. There's been some concern about your pace lately. Deliverables taking longer than expected, communication gaps." My jaw tightened. What deliverables? I've met every deadline. It's more about overall efficiency. Look, this contract is too important for any weak links. I need everyone performing at their absolute highest level. Is this a performance review? Because my last 3 evaluations were all exemplary. It's a conversation. I'm giving you the opportunity to step up or step back. This presentation has to be flawless. If you're not capable of being part of that, I need to know now. The audacity was breathtaking. He was threatening to exclude me from the presentation of my own technology. I'll be there, I said coldly. We'll see. Like I said, no weak links. I left his office with my hands shaking, not from fear, but from rage I'd suppressed for too long. That night, I called my mother. "Baby, you sound upset. They're trying to push me out completely now. Thompson basically threatened to exclude me from the DoD presentation." She was quiet for a moment. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to walk away, let it all collapse." Would it collapse? Eventually. The core security protocols require my authentication. Without me, the whole system becomes a very expensive paperweight within about a week. "Then maybe," Mom said quietly, "it's time to stop thinking about taking it back and start thinking about justice." What's the difference? Taking it back means fighting to return to where you were. Justice means making sure everyone knows the truth. Her words stayed with me. Justice, not revenge. Truth, not destruction. I started planning. The morning of the DoD presentation, I arrived at the office at 6 a.m. The meeting was scheduled at 10, giving me 4 hours to make final preparations. Not to the technology, that had been ready for weeks, to the demonstration. I accessed the core system architecture, navigating through security layers that only I fully understood. Deep in the code was the foundational authentication protocol. Every major system function traced back to this. Every deployment, every contract, every security operation required my biometric signature and access key to function at full capacity. Thompson and his team could access surface-level features. They could run demonstrations of basic functions. But the moment they tried to actually deploy the system at scale, the moment they tried to initiate the kind of comprehensive network security the DoD contract required, they'd hit a wall that only I could open. At 9:30, the conference room began filling with DoD officials, admirals, cybersecurity experts, and procurement officers. 23 people representing the largest military contract in NexCore's history. Thompson was in his element, shaking hands, making jokes, projecting the confident authority of a man who'd built an empire. I sat in the back corner, junior staff position. Vanessa arrived with 2 board members, all of them dressed like they were attending a coronation. In a sense, they were. Thompson's coronation as the public face of a company he'd systematically stolen. Thompson began his presentation at exactly 10 a.m. He was good, polished, confident, technically knowledgeable enough to sound credible without getting lost in details. He presented the Sentinel Protocol's capabilities like a maestro conducting a symphony. My symphony. 40 minutes into the presentation, one of the DoD officials, a 2-star general named Mitchell, interrupted. "This is impressive conceptually, Mr. Thompson, but we've seen impressive presentations before. What we need is verification that this system can actually do what you're claiming at the scale we require." "Absolutely," Thompson said smoothly. "We've prepared a live demonstration." He nodded to his technical lead, a man named Kevin Bradshaw who'd been hired 8 months ago and who didn't actually understand how the Sentinel Protocol's core architecture functioned. Bradshaw began typing, pulling up the demonstration interface on the main screen. Access denied. He tried again, frowning. Global admin rights required. Thompson's smile never wavered, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. "Kevin, let's use the backup demonstration account. This is the primary admin account. It should have full access. Try the authentication override." Authentication failed. Founder credentials required. The room's energy shifted. The DoD officials exchanged glances. Thompson's smile was cracking now. "We're experiencing a minor technical difficulty. Give us just one moment." General Mitchell leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Thompson, we're discussing a $1.8 billion contract for systems that will protect our nation's most sensitive military networks. A minor technical difficulty in a controlled demonstration environment is precisely what concerns us." That's when Thompson made his fatal mistake. He looked directly at me, his expression twisting into contempt. "She's replaceable junior staff." The words cut through the conference room. Thompson gestured dismissively in my direction. "We don't need her here. She's been slow on deliverables anyway. Security reasons aside, she lacks the clearance for this conversation." 23 faces turned toward me. I'd imagined this moment during sleepless nights, rehearsed variations of it. But now that it was here, I felt oddly calm. I stood slowly, deliberately, walked to the head of the table where Thompson's laptop displayed the system architecture. My system architecture. Thompson's face went from confident to confused to alarmed in 3 seconds. "Riley, what are you—" I entered my credentials. The screen that had shown access denied moments before suddenly bloomed with options, menus, administrative controls that Bradshaw and Thompson had never seen. "Welcome, Founder. Global admin rights activated." "What's happening?" General Mitchell asked. I met Thompson's eyes, watched the realization dawn like a slow-motion car crash. "My name is Riley Cross," I said, my voice steady. "I am the sole founder of NexCore Security Solutions. Every system we've deployed, every contract we've executed, every security protocol we've implemented, all of it is built on architecture that requires my explicit authorization." I turned to face the room. The Sentinel Protocol isn't just software. It's a living security ecosystem with my biometric signature and access credentials woven into its foundational code. Every major deployment requires my authentication. Every critical system function traces back to security measures that only I can authorize. Vanessa had gone white. "Riley, this isn't the time or place," I finished. "Where else would be appropriate? This is a presentation about security systems. These officials need to know exactly who controls those systems." I pulled up a directory on the screen. Patent filings, all 17 of them, all with my name as the sole inventor. Then company formation documents showing the original incorporation with me as founder and majority owner. 6 years ago, I made the mistake of trusting people who promised to help me build this company. Instead, they systematically marginalized me, diluted my ownership, and erased my contributions while profiting from technology I created. General Mitchell was studying me intently. "You're saying you're the actual creator of the Sentinel Protocol?" "I'm not saying it, I'm demonstrating it." I pulled up the core code architecture, navigating through layers of security with the ease of someone who'd written every line, showed them the authentication protocols, the biometric verification systems, the founder-level controls that Thompson and his team had never known existed. Mr. Thompson called me replaceable junior staff, but the reality is, I pulled up the contract deployment system showing the authentication requirements. Without my access keys, without my authorization codes, without my biometric verification, the Sentinel Protocol operates at approximately 30% capacity. Bradshaw looked like he might be sick. "That's impossible. We've been running full demonstrations for months." "You've been running demonstrations I pre-authorized, limited scope, controlled environments, temporary access grants, but a deployment of this scale," I gestured to the DoD contract specifications on screen, "requires continuous founder-level authentication." Thompson found his voice, though it came out strangled. "This is sabotage. She's lying." "I'm demonstrating security," I interrupted. These officials are considering trusting their nation's defense infrastructure to our systems. They should know exactly how those systems work and who controls them. One of the DoD cybersecurity experts, a woman introduced earlier as Dr. Ellen Frost, leaned forward. Ms. Cross, can you walk us through the authentication architecture? I want to understand the security logic behind requiring founder credentials. Finally, someone asking the right questions. The Sentinel Protocol was designed to prevent exactly what happened to me, unauthorized control of critical security systems. When I created this technology, I understood that the greatest vulnerability in any security system isn't external threats, it's internal compromise. I pulled up the architectural diagrams. Every 72 hours, the system requires biometric verification from me specifically, fingerprint, retinal scan, and a secondary access code that only I possess. This creates an unbreakable chain of custody. That seems like a significant operational dependency on a single individual, General Mitchell observed. It is, by design, because no one can steal, corrupt, or misuse technology if the creator maintains ultimate control. Dr. Frost was nodding slowly. It's actually brilliant from a security standpoint, the ultimate insider threat prevention. Thompson had recovered enough to mount a defense. This is a disgruntled employee trying to sabotage the most important deal in our company's history. Yes, Riley was an early contributor to the technology, but NexCore is far more than one person's work. Early contributor? The words came out harder than I intended. I wrote every line of the foundational code, filed every patent, created every algorithm that makes this system revolutionary. I didn't contribute to NexCore. I am NexCore. I pulled up my personal files, displayed on the main screen, email chains from 8 years ago showing my initial outreach to investors, development logs with timestamps proving I'd created the core protocols years before Thompson joined the company. The storage unit in Cleveland where I developed the Sentinel Protocol cost $200 a month. I worked 16-hour days for 3 years before this company existed in any official capacity, before Mr. Thompson arrived with his expensive suits and Pentagon connections. Vanessa tried to intervene. Riley, I think we should discuss this privately. Why? So you can offer me another equity dilution? Another meaningless title change? I'm done with private discussions where I'm asked to give up more of what I created. I turned back to the DoD officials. You came here to evaluate whether NexCore is capable of protecting your military infrastructure. The answer is yes, because the Sentinel Protocol is the most advanced threat prediction system ever developed, but you should know exactly who built it and who controls it. General Mitchell exchanged glances with Dr. Frost and several other officials. Ms. Cross, if we were to move forward with this contract, what kind of assurances could you provide regarding system access and operational continuity? The question hung in the air. Thompson's face went from red to purple. This was the moment he realized he'd lost control of the narrative completely. I can provide absolute assurances, I said carefully, if the contractual relationship is structured appropriately. The Sentinel Protocol requires my ongoing involvement. That's non-negotiable. It's built into the technology's architecture. The question is whether I'm involved as replaceable junior staff or as the founder and principal architect.
One of the procurement officers spoke up. This is highly irregular. We're here to evaluate a company's capabilities, and instead, we're witnessing what appears to be an internal corporate dispute. With respect, sir, it's not a dispute, it's a clarification. You're evaluating NexCore's capabilities, which are actually my capabilities. The company Mr. Thompson presented is built entirely on technology I created and continue to control. That's not a problem, it's a security feature, but it should be transparent. Dr. Frost was studying her tablet. I'm looking at the patent filings for the core Sentinel Protocol technology. All 17 patents list Riley Cross as the sole inventor, filed between 6 and 8 years ago. Those patents were assigned to the company, Vanessa said quickly. Were they? I pulled up the patent documentation. The licensing agreements gave NexCore rights to use and commercialize the technology, but the actual ownership of the intellectual property remains with me, with licensing renewable annually, a detail I insisted on during the original company formation. "This is corporate sabotage," Thompson hissed. "She's trying to destroy this deal." "I'm trying to ensure these officials understand what they're actually contracting for. The Sentinel Protocol works, it's revolutionary, but it requires my involvement, not as junior staff, as the founder and chief architect." General Mitchell stood. "I think we need a recess. 30 minutes. Mr. Thompson, Ms. Cross, we'll need clarification on the actual corporate structure and operational control before we can proceed." The DoD delegation filed out, along with most of the NexCore board members. Within seconds, only Thompson, Vanessa, myself, and 2 board members remained. Thompson exploded the moment the door closed. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You just destroyed an $18 billion contract." "No, you destroyed it when you called me replaceable in front of the clients who need me. I just corrected the record. This is my deal. I spent 6 months cultivating these relationships, using my technology, which you tried to pretend you controlled." Vanessa put a hand on Thompson's shoulder, her expression calculating. "Riley, let's be rational. Whatever grievances you have about equity structure or titles, this isn't the time. We can discuss restructuring after we secure this contract." "We've had 6 years to discuss restructuring. Every conversation ended with me having less ownership and less control of what I created." "What do you want?" Thompson demanded. It was the first honest question he'd asked me in years. "I want what's mine. Majority ownership restored, founder title, operational control over all technical development and deployment, and I want it in writing before we go back in that room." Thompson laughed, sharp and bitter. "That's insane. You're asking for the entire company. I'm asking for my company back." The room fell silent except for the ventilation system's hum. One of the board members, a venture capitalist named Andrew Ling, spoke carefully. "Riley, help me understand the technical reality. Without your cooperation, can we fulfill this contract?" "No." "Can we fulfill any of our existing contracts long-term?" "Not once the authentication windows expire. You'd have maybe a week before critical systems start degrading." Vanessa's expression hardened. "You built a kill switch into our entire business." "I built a security feature into my technology. The fact that you're calling it a kill switch tells me everything about how you view ownership." Andrew pulled out his phone. "I need to make some calls. If we're going to restructure ownership before this meeting resumes, we need legal counsel immediately." "We're not seriously considering this," Thompson said. "She's bluffing." I pulled up my laptop, accessed the system architecture, and showed them the authentication logs. Every 72 hours, these systems require my biometric verification. The next authentication window closes in 41 hours. Miss that window and everything starts degrading. "You'd destroy everything out of spite?" Vanessa asked. "I'd let the natural consequences of your theft play out. There's a difference." My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Stock price down 8% in 20 minutes. News is leaking. Whatever you're doing, finish it." "We have a choice," Andrew said. "We can fight Riley legally, spend years in court, watch our contracts dissolve and the company implode, or we can acknowledge reality and restructure accordingly." "Those agreements were based on fraudulent representation," I said quietly. "I was told equity dilution was necessary for growth, and that I'd maintain control over technical operations. Instead, I was systematically marginalized and reduced to replaceable junior staff. That's not the agreement I signed." Andrew's phone rang. He answered, listened, then put it on speaker. "Say that again for everyone." A lawyer's voice filled the room. "Based on the patent ownership structure and licensing agreements, Riley Cross has a legitimate claim to operational control of the core technology. If she withholds cooperation, the company's ability to fulfill existing contracts becomes questionable at best." Vanessa's face went gray. "What's your recommendation?" Andrew asked. "Negotiate. today, before the DoD delegation makes their decision. If they walk away from this contract because of internal instability, the company's reputation in defense contracting is finished. Vanessa looked at me with something between respect and hatred. You planned this. I prepared for it. There's a difference. What are your terms? Andrew asked.
I'd spent 3 sleepless nights working through this with Emma and a lawyer who specialized in founder disputes. 51% equity ownership were stored immediately. Founder and CEO title. Thompson can remain as president of client relations, reporting to me. Vanessa's firm maintains their investment stake, but loses board majority. I have final approval on all major contracts and company strategy. That's everything? Thompson said flatly. That's what founder control looks like. You can still do what you're good at, relationship management, client services, business development, but you do it within a company structure that accurately reflects who created the value you've been selling. And if we refuse? Vanessa asked. Then I stop providing authentication codes in 41 hours. Your contracts start failing within a week. The DoD walks away today. NexCore's reputation craters, and we all lose. Andrew looked at Thompson and Vanessa. She has us. We can either accept her terms or watch the company collapse. Vanessa's phone buzzed. The DoD delegation is ready to resume. We have 10 minutes. Then we give them assurance that restructuring is happening, I replied. I'll guarantee my cooperation and ongoing involvement as founder. We'll present a unified front, but I want signed commitment to the new terms before end of business today. Thompson looked like he wanted to flip the table, but he was a political creature, and he understood when he'd lost. Fine. When we returned to the conference room, General Mitchell was waiting. Miss Cross, we've done some research during our break. Your credentials are impressive. The patents, the technical publications, it's clear you're the principal creator of this technology. But we need assurance that NexCore is a stable organization capable of delivering on a contract this size. General, what you witnessed was a necessary correction to accurately represent NexCore's leadership structure. I am the founder and will be formally assuming the role of CEO. Mr. Thompson will continue as president of client relations, but the technical architecture, security protocols, and system deployments will be under my direct oversight. Dr. Frost leaned forward. That's actually reassuring from a security standpoint. Having the original architect directly involved in deployment significantly reduces risk. General Mitchell exchanged glances with his team, then looked back at me. Miss Cross, we're prepared to move forward with this contract on one condition. You personally oversee the technical deployment and maintain direct involvement throughout the implementation phase. We're not contracting with NexCore as Thompson presented it. We're contracting with NexCore as you've revealed it to E, a company built around revolutionary technology created and controlled by its founder. Relief flooded through me. That's acceptable. The contract was signed 3 weeks later. $1.8 billion for comprehensive network security across Department of Defense infrastructure. By then, the corporate restructuring was complete. I held 51% equity in the CEO title. Thompson remained as president, diminished but still compensated enough to accept his reduced role. The tech press covered the story extensively. Founder takes back company in dramatic boardroom confrontation was the most popular headline. I didn't care much about the narrative. I cared about the reality. NexCore was mine again. The Sunday after everything was finalized, I had dinner at Mom's house. Emma was there, already planning her return to the company as Chief Operating Officer. I'm proud of you, Mom said quietly. Not for winning, for standing up for yourself. I almost didn't, almost let them erase me completely. But you didn't. You remembered what I taught you. Empathy isn't weakness, but neither is self-respect. Thompson left the company 8 months later. Last I heard, he's doing fine, diminished but not destroyed. That wasn't my goal anyway. Revenge would have been burning it all down. Justice was taking back what was mine. Today, NexCore employs over 300 people. We've secured contracts with 17 government agencies and 42 private sector clients. The Sentinel Protocol is deployed, protecting critical infrastructure across the country. And every single one of those systems still requires my authentication. Not because I don't trust my team, but because I learned the hard way that the greatest security threat isn't external attacks. It's people who smile while they steal from you. If this story resonated with you, we'd be grateful if you'd consider subscribing. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, a milestone that represents a community of people who believe in stories of perseverance and justice. Your support makes these stories possible and helps this channel grow. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.